Our moderator is getting mic'd up. While that's happening, why don't you introduce yourselves one at a time, please, beginning with Tal.
Hello. Hi, so my name is Tal. I'm from Bluethrone. We're a data and technology-driven appreciation company. We buy, grow both iOS and Android apps. So if you have an app that you want to sell, come to us.
My name is Daniel Schori. I'm a lead account specialist for Aarki. Aarki is a global programmatic DSP, mainly with mobile, and we focus on ML models and in-house creative optimization.
Hi guys, I'm William. I'm VP Sales EMEA for Moloco. We are a DSP focusing on user acquisition and re-engagement, and very happy to be in TLV actually. It's our first time getting out here since we launched back in 2020, so hi.
Hello everyone. Oops. My name is Valeria. I work as a Director Account Management at Remerge for the gaming vertical. Remerge is based in Berlin, but has some other offices around the world. And what we do is basically to support the app marketers to grow their app through in-app programmatic advertising. So basically we are a DSP as well for engagement mainly.
Hey guys, my name is Hilit. I'm the Senior VP Growth at Youappi. It's great to see you all, actually, and indeed very excited. Youappi is a retargeting programmatic DSP. We are focusing, I would say, solely probably as well as the others in the gaming vertical. And I'm very happy to see you and to talk about retargeting and user acquisition techniques.
Great. So hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel, Advanced UA and Retargeting and Retention Techniques. My name is Maggie Katz, and I'm a Senior UA Manager at Huuuge Games. And our panelists already introduced themselves. But before diving in, I would like to mention that the goal today is that you come away with something, whatever your role is in this industry. Let it be a new idea, a fresh perspective, or a new strategy. Anything that can help you grow your business. So let's just dive in now that everybody introduced themselves. The first question to you guys, what are some of the UA strategies and trends being adopted by media buying partners that developers could benefit from? Maybe, Will, you want to start on that?
Yeah, thanks, and hi.
Hi.
Welcome. So UA strategies. So I think one of the broadest trends we've seen is diversification. Obviously with recent changes in the space, we've seen some drops with some traditional partners, and there's been a search for new traffic. So there's a range of new traffic sources coming on board, and certainly diversification across channel types as well as within channels. So multiple DSPs, multiple owned and operated spaces, some of the newer ones as well. So I think that's a key focus for most of our partners, and we'd always recommend using multiple partners. Another focus as well, as data becomes maybe scarcer or slightly different with what we have, is creative optimization, and a focus on creative iteration, testing, and then optimization, and then working forward on that level. So the rise of studios and the rise of vendors providing creative support or very sort of strong functional creative testing algorithms there. And then obviously seasonality. That's a big piece of the puzzle. I think it's quite old and tested, but we see, for instance, e-commerce going very strong in Q4, and obviously January is the big piece for the gaming guys.
Thank you. And like out of the ordinary, like any activities that you have done in the recent time that you feel like, okay, this is like worth sharing? Maybe Tal, you want to go on that?
Sure. So as the VC of apps, we do see a lot of apps that are coming to us, and we do see their data. And what we see more and more is the rise of influencers. So yes, the big guys are always there, Facebook and Google Ads and Apple Search Ads, but we see more and more apps using influencers traffic. And it's not necessarily only Gen Z apps. It's other apps as well from various verticals. And there is a reason why Vango purchased Jet Fuel a year ago, and even Lightrix that purchased another influencers platform earlier this year. So this is growing, and we do believe that this trend will grow in the future. And I think that right now there is another panel talking about influencers that just shows you how big this niche is growing.
Great. You had also, I think, another example of something very special that you experienced.
Yeah, so it's not like a UA trick, but obviously you need to know your app's strengths. And when we're talking about an app, it's not only the app itself, the product, but also the users and the community. And we have an app that has a great Discord community. So we tried to take advantage of it and make them spread out the word about the app. So we created some sort of a context where each Discord member got his own link, and he shared it with their friends, and then we got a lot of free organic traffic with other users that are similar to the users that we already have. So it was good traffic, and our users liked it because they got to compete between each other and get a prize out of it. So again, it's not a clear UA technique, but you do need to understand the strength of your app, even if it's not proper UA.
Thank you. So when speaking about out of the norm activities, like we all work directly with networks, what would you say, maybe Will, to you again, what are the differences when working with a DSP than working directly with a network?
It's a good question. We get called a network quite a lot. I kind of consider us a robot media buyer on networks as a DSP. That's kind of the line I've taken, and it requires some sort of different operational approaches. So I think it's quite clear that we optimize on a programmatic basis. So we target at the CPM and the user level rather than targeting at the publisher level. And that has some very significant practices there. So we need data in order to perform. And we perform and increase scale slightly slower than on a network's typical sort of life cycle. The way we optimize is by ultimately creative and also with levers such as your daily spend rather than by switching off publishers. And that's a key focus. And then over time, you should see campaigns begin to increase in performance. So the actual amount of time it takes to see success with a DSP is quite a key function, and you should budget for that, and you should factor that into your account management processes when you're working with a DSP partner.
Danielle, you also have, you're working in a DSP, so you also have some insights on what are differences.
I think most of us here are at DSP, so we're going to cover most of the same things.
Yes.
But just to add to what Will said, with networks, you're kind of limited if you connect with networks. There's usually one main SSP, and with a DSP, you're automatically plugged into a variety of SSPs, exchanges, a wider, basically an abundance of inventory, which allows you to sort of have kind of a one-stop shop for all the variety of optimizations that you'd like to do. And I think as opposed to networks who are mainly UA, I think some of our DSPs here, like Aarki, are both UA and RT. So it kind of gives you a one-stop shop to be able to do that. And it sort of ties into what was said here earlier, that we're going into more of a stage where there's more money going into DSPs and there's more of a variety of DSPs for every advertiser to use, and to each one would give him something else and their own special sauce, as I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. I would maybe add two things. So I've been working in networks previously for, I think, the first 10 years in my industry, and I think one thing I would say that technology is a key when working with the DSP. So that's in terms of features, advanced, being able to actually buy more effectively and efficiently So definitely that would probably be one. And second is scale. All of us are at the end looking for quality in scale. So I think these two things are, from our experience, are a key.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, actually, something that's been interesting, having worked in network space as well directly, whereas you're kind of competitively looking for inventory on a waterfall, and you're typically seeing the top 5 gaining most of the traffic and most of the impressions. With a DSP, it's very much about the user level optimization. What we've seen is like scaling breadth across our portfolio, so we can actually make multiple accounts scale to significant levels, and that's quite a pleasure to be able to do that for our partners. So it's well worth sort of having a look into that and seeing what you can find out there.
Yeah, and as an advertiser, you can't really split yourself into too many people and cover everyone. So it's good when we're working on DSPs with a lot of different publishers and bulk them together, right? And most of the networks we're also recognizing within the DSP publisher list. So thank you on that. So some marketers out there still favor UA over retargeting. How do these two mobile marketing strategies complement each other? And what is your advice to marketers who are hesitant to run retargeting campaigns right now? Valeria, want to go on that?
Sure, thanks. So maybe one of the first points is to understand why they are hesitant to run retargeting, I would say. There might be many reasons, right? So it could be also that at the moment they are just focusing on user acquisition because they just launched the app. It's a very fresh app. And most probably at this point, it's good that they are focusing on user acquisition because actually to start retargeting, they need to have already a certain user base and a certain also base of paying users. I will mainly refer to gaming, probably. You will notice, but that's exactly where I'm working, so that's, I think, where I can bring some more value. If they are hesitant because they are not sure about the value of retargeting, then there are many, many factors to consider, actually. So when the app is, for example, at a more mature stage, to acquire a new valuable user for certain geos, like the US, becomes more and more expensive. I heard many figures with the many partners I've been talking to, even mentioning $80 for a valuable user in the US. Of course, for certain regions, it still makes sense. It's still cheap, cost-effective to invest a lot in UA. For some others, probably the focus should rather move towards retaining the users that you already spent on. That's when retargeting comes into place. So retargeting, in the end, is complementing indeed the user acquisition effort because it's making sure that the money that you invested there is optimized, maximized, retaining your users and making sure that actually their lifetime value goes in the direction that you want. There is the big topic as well of the retention, right? So you surely, if you're in the industry, you surely read many studies saying that after the install, 7 days, you lose almost 90% of the fresh installers. That's just money that you invested in your user acquisition and then never even brought to a first monetization of this user. So there are many techniques like strategies to address the user at different levels of the funnel, from the fresh installers to your VIP users that you cannot really afford to lose. So that I think like this is the whole value of retargeting. And if the question actually is about the organic traffic cannibalization, at this point, I think incrementality measurement is out there. We have been talking about this for years at this point, so I think like there are also some tools to make sure that your campaigns add value on top for your app, rather than just getting attributions.
Hilly, do you want to?
Yeah, for sure. So definitely I agree with the things that Valeria mentioned. I think, and we probably will talk about it like a bit more, but I think one very important thing is whenever I'm being asked, I think it needs to make sense. It needs to be a win-win. It needs to make sense. So yes, sufficient user level data is important, and I think that business stage is also important. I think that having the ability to actually have the technology in-house to support that, meaning that you have a logic, that you have the right KPIs, that you have a way to actually monitor success. Valeria spoke a little bit about incrementality, but definitely that's one of the tools that are out there, whether as a vendor, as a DSP it can help, or internally. But I think that the conversation about making sure that you're able to monitor the data and you're ready for that, I think that's also super important in being ready for retargeting.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. You guys covered most of it, but just going into the part about logic, a lot of the, if we're going back to advertisers being unsure whether to go into retargeting, I think there's a large stage of testing and figuring out each company's own logic on philosophically what is a user that's how many days lapse is worth retargeting, right? Like you said, that's the biggest chunk is realizing after a lot of testing where are we getting ROI, right? And then after that, it's mainly understanding how to segment, how to chop up the user pool as well. And like you said, it's mainly gaming, right? Getting the deep dormant users and understanding if you want to use a creative that's incentivized. Are you giving something back? Are you doing that only with deep dormant users? Are you doing this with, like you said, users that were just lapsed a few days? It's a whole bunch of testing that goes into it, but I think especially with older apps, like you said, it's becoming a necessity more and more.
And Valeria, you already touched it a little bit. At what business stage is it recommended to add retargeting strategies actually to your media mix?
So what we do usually is to look at daily active users. And I think like in general, as a benchmark, we could consider around 300, 400,000. But then of course, then it depends, right? So your retargeting campaigns in general need audience size. They need data volume. This is also because optimizations is done automatically by the algorithms, and we need to feed them to understand actually how to bid and bring you the best performance. If you have an ROI kind of goal, of course, and everyone wants to be profitable, so I think it's a quite fair kind of goal, you need as well to make sure that your user base for paying users is big enough to actually get the results that you would like to achieve.
You want to go
Yeah,
add to that?
Yeah, I think like maybe one more thing. I think in terms of sufficient amount of users, understanding also like the business model of the advertiser. So understanding if we're talking about subscription-based, are we talking about monetization? So understanding if there is indeed value. I mentioned all the time, it needs to be a win-win. So that means that you need to have a model behind it to be able to monitor. So I think that's part of it. The second part, when to add retargeting, I think business stage-wise, when you're set up in terms of the different flow in-app events in the funnel, so you're able to actually monitor the different engagement stages and where is that sweet spot that you're actually interested in. So it should fit also the business model, the business stage, and wrap it up with good technology and monitoring. So I think that would be for me.
And what are your best practices for developing a retargeting and segmentation strategy, and how you get started on that? Also, Danielle, you want to go on that first?
Yeah, I think we covered pretty much most of it now with analyzing, just realizing your KPIs, understanding how big the user pool is, understanding exactly how you want to chop up the segments. And yeah, I think we went pretty deep on the formal one, so I think we covered most of it, right? With again, using the right creatives. Do you want to add to that? Or?
More into the segmentation, maybe?
Maybe stepping a little bit back, actually. Even like identifying what's the challenge in your app that you want to address. So there are many different topics. Maybe, especially if you're starting with retargeting, you want to start from a limited kind of segment, maybe your most valuable users. You need to identify if like your problem or the challenge you want to address, let's say, is more towards retention. it's more towards like increasing the frequency of purchases, so more towards ROI, for example. And then maybe like, of course, make sure that you have all the events, as Hilit said, in place, so that actually you can see what's the progression also of the users when you bring them back. We were talking about fresh installers, for example. There are many at this point retention events. Again, monitor if like they come back to your app on day 2, on day 7, for example, and see how they are advancing in different levels. And this should help you also identifying basically, as Hilit said, indeed the sweet spots, right? So cluster your users according to the behavior and develop a strategy that is actually tailored for them. So with a specific messaging as well. You are addressing users that left your app, maybe how can you leverage also your product to bring them back, right? So which kind of incentives, treatments you can offer. And then it comes, of course, as Daniel was saying, the creative strategy as well. So in the end, really like talking about strategy means working on a synergy between your own product and then the messaging that you put out there through your campaign, your retargeting campaigns, and the segmentation that you have in place.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, segmentation as I see it, like segmentation is, it's really like optimization. In user acquisition, you know, we have different, I would say, tools to actually optimize. And at the end, I always say that segmentation and retargeting is key for optimization. It's an ongoing process. It's super important to understand what are the different signals that are being passed through the attribution, what are the different signals that are maybe hidden from the attribution for many reasons. Some of them might be in the CRM system, some of them can be used in retention for user acquisition, depends. Sometimes the partner that we work with does not know yet how to define retargeting as different data signals. So I think that when doing the segmentation, it's super important to learn the app as a whole, as you know, as a full ecosystem, and understand if you can combine the attribution signals, the CRM signals, any type of maybe even static, whatever that is, but combine all the different data points in order to actually, and it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, I'd say segmentation, it's identifying gaps, and this is where life cycle of the app actually comes in. You've got to be able to predict with relative certainty the LTV of any given segment, so you can ensure that you're not ultimately double paying for any given user, and you're able to measure incrementality. So I think that's a really key part of the strategy, and you really need to dig in and understand what's going on there. And then, yeah, it's been touched on, dynamic product ads or particular events in gaming. It's a really great way of engaging users, either with shopping carts they've left behind or with particular competitions based on those segments to really get them to re-engage and drop back into your product.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing with relation to what Hilit said. The optimization, which is how you segment and how it's an ongoing process, it's important for advertisers to be flexible. Especially with gaming, it really varies how advertisers are prepared for retargeting as far as technology, as far as internal product. The more flexible, I'm just going to say that the more flexible an advertiser is with changing segments quite freely and even in a short span of time, the easier it is for us as a DSP to optimize and find a granular way to get the best ROI, rather than an advertiser that would be quite a bit more rigid with there's 2 segments and this is it, you know. So flexibility and technology within the actual advertiser also helps that a lot.
So let's talk a bit more about optimization also, but in terms of creative, what are your best and recommended practices for creative optimization, also from the UI point of view, also from the retargeting point of view?
Yeah, so it's as I alluded to earlier, it's becoming increasingly important. It has been for many genres recently. Creative output is key to competitiveness in the space and improving performance over time. And I think you need to work with your partner to develop a strategy. what you want is a partner that can test multiple creatives on a cyclical basis at any given time, not to necessarily drop completely underperforming creatives, but to allow these to sit there in the background in case they do pick up in performance again, and let the ML then pick up on that and then and bring that forward and bring that and raise that on the cards for further bidding. And then just overall, just that, I'd say that carousel. Some partners will also offer creative studios and creative services themselves, and it's well worth taking advantage of that because they can suddenly help you and actually take lessons from other partners that they may have with creatives they've seen. And obviously, there's competitive intelligence out there that you can use and utilize with QBRs when you're spending at decent levels with your partners. So always ask for that when you are having account management meetings.
Thank you for the tips. Ty, you want to give us some?
Yes, I agree with what Will said, but I do want to say that creative is not only the creative. Like Apple introduced custom product pages, and now it's a part of the creative. It's not only the first impression of the user with the app, but it's now a journey. So, and we tested it a few times, and we've seen that by A/B testing a custom product page with creatives, the conversion rate is increasing, and we do recommend it to other developers as well.
Great. Yes, it's on different funnels basically on the way to the app itself.
Yes.
So yes. Yeah, you want to add something?
Yeah, I will add that I think it's, as we said before, A/B testing, a lot of A/B testing, and flexibility. I think it's super important, talking about meetings with account managers, to make sure that you're getting a feedback all the time, that you understand as a DSP what are the tests that are being performed, what are the changes that are being performed. If you're running retargeting, make sure that you have a message. You talked about the full journey, so make sure that you have the right message for retargeting and not for user acquisition. More best practices that, for example, I can share playables, which are, app developers are investing, I don't know, $5,000 in every playable, even more. And, we learned, for example, that when we do that for retargeting, it doesn't necessarily work, especially if you have a very old, massive title. The user are already engaged, they know the app, they know the product. So maybe not worth to invest in playables, maybe just even simple animation banners or videos, whatever that is. So I think just adding that to the mix.
And also, I guess, transparency.
As I mentioned, feedbacks. It's sometimes, we're getting from a partner 3 times a week, testing creatives, like do that, change that. We don't even get like, A, what are we testing? B, what are the results of what we tested? And maybe to add there that it's also one of the things that we tend to offer, and I really recommend an app developer, if not using DSP, even in-house, to make sure that you have that transparency as a tool in terms of a dashboard, or a tool to make sure that you have the results in front of you and you can analyze all the time data, analyze the data and learn from the data.
And some marketers contemplate on the right balance between branding and performance-based activities, as well as on the share of voice of retargeting and UA. What's your take on it, and should there be different KPIs for each of the strategies?
Yes. Definitely yes. So I would say like market share, it really depends on the app. There are, like the common would be to say sometimes even 70% is going to UA, 30% is going to retargeting, but that really varies, and I'm sure that all the team can actually share. We have titles spending 50% of their marketing mix on retargeting. Others are only spending 15, 20%. It really depends on all the different metrics I just mentioned. Retargeting, and that maybe to answer on the second question, when is it important to add retargeting? Retargeting needs to be more effective than user acquisition. It is a lot more. You mentioned $80 for CPI in the US. You need to buy more effectively in retargeting. You need to expect better KPIs, higher returns, and of course it differentiates between the different verticals.
I totally agree. I would say in general in retargeting we don't really see much of branding kind of campaigns. They're really performance based. So very clear KPIs and also the progression of those KPIs. So we might have like ROI, but like we have a proxy for day 2. We can see how it develops on day 7, 30, 90, with of course a kind of goal that is established and decided by the advertiser regarding when they want to break even on this kind of user. Different KPIs, surely, but also flexible KPIs. You run campaigns with some expectations at the beginning, maybe, but then the data is saying something different as well. I think, like, in general, the big opportunity is to review your assumptions based on the data that you're collecting. And that's a super useful kind of...
So great that you already speak about opportunities. We wanna wrap this up with like your 2 cents on what are actually the biggest opportunities that you see in regards to our topic today. So if everybody wants to give just their 2 cents on it. Go ahead. So let's start here with Hilit.
Okay. I think that, so just to touch upon very quickly a few things. I think the economic situation, I think is an opportunity. I think, we are all seeing the companies and the high-tech companies and everyone and, what we're going through. We understand that we need to be more effective. We have less resources sometimes. So I think the economic is one. I think iOS changes are an opportunity, different technologies, tools. I think Facebook going down, DSP's budgets going up. So I think like all of these, I think, are a great and big opportunity. High level, I think that it's from seeing 70% share for UA and 30% for retargeting, I think we can clearly see that percentage going up. And for all of us, I think it's a big opportunity.
I thought of this more from the advertiser actually perspective, but maybe, yeah, I will add another kind of perspective, maybe, yeah. I was thinking like the opportunity that I see here is actually to understand better and better your user base. As well, like through the evolution of your product also evolve, get changes, get additional features. You see actually from the data and through your campaigns how these affect, improve the results you get from your users. So I think like is a journey indeed for the user, but also for the marketers that are running campaigns on these users.
Thank you. Will?
Yeah, I think I'll stick with one as we're over time, but I think iOS, the feedback is that the drop in spend as Facebook drops and Google stops on iOS is not being made up by the rest of the vendors that our partners work with. So there's a whole lot of inventory that can be tapped into and that our partners are wanting to tap into. So there's a huge amount of ultimately traffic and users out there that we're not picking up anymore. So that's a big win for those that crack it.
I think mine has been covered here by Elite. It's pretty much the same point, so I'm going to pass it on.
Okay.
Yeah, so I believe that data is the key, both for retargeting and user acquisition, for segmentation, of course. Nowadays, when, as Will said, iOS spend is going down, if you have your data, you can utilize it to get placements which you weren't able to get before, so you should definitely utilize that. You should definitely utilize other channels that might not be super sexy, like email marketing, for example, as we talked before. So definitely use whatever resource you have to get as much new users or retargeted users to your app back again.
Great, thank you very much. I like also ending on data. That's a very nice finish line. If anybody has any questions to our panelists, we're a bit over time, but I think because we're the last panel, I guess we get that extra time.
Someone is going to tell you that
no. No?
Thank you. Okay, take your photos. Come on, everybody. Look at these beautiful people. Let's give it up for this great panel. Thank you very much.